What's going on, ladies and gents? Welcome back to another episode of High Top Sports. Georgia just got done in a close one with Kentucky. This show is, of course, brought to you by BetUS. And, of course, I think my flowers to Jack Mack. My man told me this was going to be a dogfight. My man told me that it was going to come down. It was going to be a low-scoring game. Take the under. Come Saturday, I got all my guys, my experts telling me Georgia's going to go in there and roll. I was like, they're 100% right. How would Georgia not put up 25? Kentucky's not going to score. Brock Vandagriff, looked horrible. I had him on another thing, throwing an interception. I was completely wrong. I should have listened to Jack Mack. Jack, talk to me about this big Kentucky game. I texted you during the game, kind of trolling. You're like, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, as Kirby always says, playing on the road in the SEC is not a cupcake. No matter who you're playing, it's going to be difficult. And as you can see, the last few years, Georgia's first road game, it's always close. Auburn last year, they just have to seemingly find their footing on the road to be confident. So I'm glad we got it out of the way with Kentucky. It was a little bit closer than I imagined. Yeah, I was right about the under, but it was a little closer, too close for comfort.
Yes, it was.
So hopefully the team has learned something. Kirby's going to light a fire under them through the bye week going into Alabama, and that's just what they need. It's almost like, I don't want to say they almost limit the playbook. It seems, they got Bama coming up. They think they can handle Kentucky. Limited playbook. I think they did a little bit too limited of a playbook, but whatever works. I think we didn't want to show too much against Bama, which we did, and we got the W. Still, the defense not allowing a touchdown, so still a lot of positives. The offense didn't look as great. Carson Beck, didn't look the same as the first 2 weeks, but it's college football, right? I mean, things happen, especially in the SEC on the road.
Week to week, 18 got off to a sluggish start, got rolling at the end there. I'm not concerned. I think this honestly couldn't have happened at a more perfect time. This is where Kirby thrives. And when you said they kind of limited the playbook almost too much, I spoke to this on our Oregon channel about Dan Lanning. The first two games, they just kind of looked like the Daffy Duck, not the real duck. And I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if Dan was holding back all the strings to put them through a little adversity before the schedule got a little bit tough. That seems crazy. I know that, but these guys are psychotic. And by these guys, I mean Dan Lanning and Kirby Smart. They're psychopaths, okay? And the good kind of psychopaths. So, again, the Georgia did exactly what they need to do. They won. Nobody's going to look back like, well, it would be Kentucky by 1 point. They dropped behind Texas. I think that was a little bit of a fluke. Texas hasn't really played anybody outside of Michigan, and Michigan is not anybody, I can assure you. But they handled Michigan. So, in a hostile environment at Michigan. But look, this game expected to be close, but I think heading into Bama rolls Wisconsin, finds a little bit of a rhythm. Georgia gets punched in the mouth. We are set up for a just masterpiece of a football game come Saturday in 2 weeks.
We are. And obviously, Georgia has some things to fix. As I mentioned last week, I mean, my main concern is offensive and defensive line. And defensive line, we're missing a few pieces. Jalen Walker stepped up, played good, got some pressure in the backfield. But I mean, Alabama is a different animal altogether. Alabama and Kentucky are two different animals. So, offensive line, it may seem worrisome with the way we were able to run the football. I mean, Kentucky was stacking the box. That is something to keep in mind. But again, I go back to a limited playbook. They're on the road. They don't want to make the big mistake, right? Kirby's always big on keeping the game close. Let their experience, their pedigree take over there in the fourth quarter. That's what happened. But yeah, going into Bama week, getting healthy. Number one, getting Warren Brinson, Michael Williams back. We need them, and that is obvious to get to Milrow. So having them back, we lost Tate Ratledge over the weekend. He's going to be out for a few weeks. That's going to be tough. Veteran presence, even just in the huddle, just having him around
Sure.
is going to be missed, especially on the road in a hostile environment in Tuscaloosa. So getting healthy is the theme of the week. And, as you said, Kirby now has that fire he can light under.
If there's one thing that the Dogs have a lot of, that's going to be depth. So I wouldn't be too concerned. But again, it's still a big veteran presence. Again, this show is brought to you by BetUS. And when you use the code YouTube150 at betus.com, you get back 150% on your first two deposits, $125 on the third, up to $2,000. And if you would have followed what Jack gave you last week, take the under. Don't take the 24 points they're giving you to Kentucky. Absolutely handing you money. You would have walked away happy. I think you had a family member that cashed in on your under there. think he put the life savings on it. I think he put the Mac attack savings and cashed out. Am I right?
That is right. Some people got rich over the weekend. So hopefully you guys keep tuning on, tuning in. We're gonna go undefeated this year.
I love it. Let's talk a little bit about some penalties, and then we'll dabble a little bit more into the Bama and how that's going to translate. Apparently, you're playing the "woe is me" card before the show that Bama gets penalized more than anybody else in the country. I go, oh, here we go. These dogs, they can't just get win 2 national championships and go about their way. They gotta let us hear it.
Well, look, numbers are numbers, and I'll get to the Alabama whistle here in a minute. But over the last few years, since Georgia started winning national championships, coincidentally, um, they have more. They're 121st this year in penalties against them. Last year, they're 122nd. The year before, 121st. So they are getting flagged more. Kirby spoke to this and says, "I don't know what's going on. We teach the same thing as when he started coaching there. Nothing much has changed technique wise. So it is a little odd that the whistles go up. And on the other side, Georgia's opponents this year have had 12 flags thrown against them. Now I know for the most part, people may say inferior competition, but that's not a good trend going into the Alabama game. We want to. Again, I don't want to be the woe is me Georgia fan, but numbers are numbers, and that's a problem. And in a close game against Alabama on the road, that that's worrisome. One big call like that, and it's a totally different game. We've seen it before. My Georgia fans know about Tyler Simmons being on side. We should have 3 national championships right now. But
Look,
I digress.
you're not wrong with your comments on the officiating. There was a outcry by most media outlets this past weekend about the poor officiating that's been going on for the last couple of weeks. Florida had an atrocious one with the targeting to the butt of Triquez Bridges. It got confirmed after going. It's just ugly right now. And like you said, in a game like this, you want it to be let the game be the deciding factor. It's important to have good play calling. It's important to have obviously great officiating. But the last thing you want to see is what we saw against the Bengals in Kansas City. They're driving on the field and you get the pass interference. Now, it's part of the game, right? You want to have a good close game. You want to play good football, but you don't want to leave it to where you feel like, hey, the officiating is definitely help pull this game one way or the other. So hopefully they can get this figured out in the next 2 weeks because this game is going to be must watch TV. And the last thing that I need is to hear you Georgia dogs whining if it doesn't go your way, and vice versa. Because Bama fans, I trust me, if they take this is going to be DeBoer's first loss. This is going to be that first realization that Saban's not there anymore. They're going to come out if things don't go well.
Look, the stakes have not. I mean, they can't be higher, especially on Alabama. I think the pressure is all on them. They know, you know, the narrative in the country right now that their window is closing with Saban gone. I mean, that's obvious. Everyone thinks that. I mean, Kellen DeBoer, he's a good coach. He's won everywhere he's gone, but Alabama dealing with those crazies down there. I mean, it's a different ball game. So one loss, and that honeymoon phase will be over quickly. I mean, as you can see in that South Florida game, I mean, you could hear the rumblings in Tuscaloosa. It was 6 minutes left. They're up by 1 point. I know they ended up winning by a lot, but still, I mean, you can just kind of feel the tension with Alabama. Again, they did, play well against Wisconsin, even though I think that quarterback going out, I think Wisconsin may have covered. But
Van Dyke, yeah.
yeah, that backup, yeah, it was tough. But again, yeah, the pressure's on Bama going into this game, and if it were up to me, there'd be no flags. I want Georgia. We're going to punch them right in the mouth all game long in Tuscaloosa. There's going to be no doubt again who the kings of college football are.
This game is going to be exciting. One of two things I'm looking forward to it is I feel like Bama has done what Bama's done in the past, and we kind of almost forget that DeBoer's on the sideline. I almost thought, I think Saban might still be calling the football, might be calling the plays still. So again, this game is going to be an awakening. Saban has kind of held that over Georgia and Kirby the times that he were there. So this is a big game for obviously the Dogs to kind of get that monkey off their back of like, he's gone. This isn't the Bama
Yeah.
of old. This is the new Bama. We're still Georgia though. We didn't go anywhere. Yes, we've had our struggles, and but look, if you think that Saban's not in that meeting, helping DeBoer and maybe even tap it into a couple of, wouldn't shock me. But he's got to work Saturday in the morning, so we'll see how that plays out. But this Bama game,
Yeah, I wonder who he picks.
oh, that's a good one. I mean, because look, I think he picked Georgia to win it all, right? I believe he did at the beginning of the year in Ireland. So it's a very good point. Who will he pick come Saturday? That'll be fun.
Yeah, it's just you can never tell with Saban. I mean, when Kirby and him, like when the national championship a couple years ago, they spoke together, did an interview. They just have a weird vibe. Like they're not giving too much to each other. So I can never really know where Nick Saban is on his thoughts. Obviously, he's a Bama guy, but I will admit, since he's been there, he has had the better of Georgia. We got the one national championship, but absolutely, as a Georgia fan, I am glad he will not be there on Saturday.
Maybe. Well, it's
Well,
game day is there. I believe it will be. So he will be there. Maybe after his time on game day, maybe he hops up to the booth and gets in the headset of the board. Might help out a little bit. But look, I'm excited to see this too because like you said before the show, the Bama fans are calling into Feinbaum. They're still on the Bama train. Reality hasn't set in. And hey, look, kudos to DeBoer. Makes it feel like it's still the good old fashioned Alabama football, and that's exactly what he needs to be doing. I want to see them get knocked off their pedestal. Who doesn't, to be honest with you? And a little bit of taste of reality, especially for me as a Florida fan. We kind of just stew in it. You know what I mean? So it'd be nice to see some others get a little taste of it from it.
absolutely. And going to the Feinbaum, I used to watch that when I was in high school. I used to listen to him all the time. I used to think, oh, this guy's great. He's got all these crazy opinions. He was entertaining, but it has gotten old. I'll tell you what. So I had it on in the background the other day, and call after call for hours. Georgia can't beat Kentucky. It's going to be a bloodbath in 2 weeks, just like always. I mean, as if they hadn't seen Georgia the last few years. They always have a game like this, and that's what they need. I mean, they always propel. I mean, the way I look at it is if you look at big games that Georgia has played in, I mean, they have the various road woes against the SEC teams, but Clemson, beginning of the year, Oregon, we show up against the big games and we dominate. So I expect them just a different team to come out. And that Kentucky
Tennessee,
game, in my
another
opinion,
game you guys showed up on.
is
I
out the
got
window.
you.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, that Kentucky game is out the window. I mean, that means nothing going into this game. How many times have we seen, or I've seen, Georgia or Alabama and Auburn in the Iron Bowl? Auburn's terrible. They go to the wire with them. Alabama plays Georgia in the SC championship. They look like an NFL team. So Georgia, Alabama, it's just going to be a different game than what we've seen.
The same I preached when Bama kind of scooted past USF, and then this week Bama obviously rolls Wisconsin. You can't put any weight into any of those games. The same way you can't put any weight to this Kentucky versus Georgia game. This is the Georgia that we know. Georgia handled the Georgia we saw at Clemson is the Georgia that I expect to see come against Alabama and do what they're supposed to do. I definitely believe they got a little caught off on their back foot, and in Kentucky, and Stoops knows what he's doing, and so does Dabo. But I really think this one's been circled. I think that's kind of cliche to say, but we all know. And I wouldn't be surprised if Kirby's got those recordings. Probably, again, the psychopath in him did it on purpose to get those Paul Feinball recordings to play through the locker room all week long, for the next 2 weeks, just to hear so those guys can hear it.
Absolutely. And that makes me think, I mean, we are due for one of these Kirby leak locker room speeches. Remember that one a few years
Oh,
ago
yeah.
against Florida?
Todd from work plays it for me at least twice a week, just to remind
Yeah,
me of what I don't have. So I saw some clips from him at practice, just ripping the guys a new one. So we're getting little tidbits of it already.
absolutely. I look forward to something like that. But yeah, I mean, tensions are going to be high. I think, again, we're going to be ready to go. Alabama is, until we beat them, in Alabama, in Tuscaloosa. I mean, that to me is, that will be the moment when everyone knows. But I'm not looking past Texas. Tennessee's look good. I got a buddy that's a Tennessee fan. Is telling me, hey, set your calendar for November. But we've seen how that's gone the last few years. But
It's an electric season for everybody. I think the only team that really scooted by in the SEC is going to be Mizzou. They're the only ones that are just going to just creep on by. They got Alabama and Oklahoma is really their only true path of adversity in the SEC. So we will see. Ole Miss doesn't really play too much of a crazy schedule either. It is going to shape up to be an absolute good one for the SEC. And look, we get some great SEC play this week as well as Oklahoma does take on Tennessee, and you'll finally get to see Tennessee. Are they what everyone thinks they are? I don't think Oklahoma is anything special, but we'll find out come this weekend. If you guys are enjoying the content, be sure to smash the like button, subscribe. That's Jack Mack, our dog insider. I'm Shelton. This show is brought to you by BetUS. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace and love, baby.